Good afternoon, everyone. This Committee of Adjustment meeting for the Township of Selwyn for Tuesday, April the 23rd, 2024 will come to order. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Seeing none, please note that. Our first application, we will go to our planner to tell us the purpose of the meeting. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Committee of Adjustment is holding a public hearing today in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act in order to consider 4 applications for relief from bylaw 2009-021, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. The prescribed notice of the public hearing was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within a 60-meter radius of the subject properties. Ministries and agencies were circulated via email. The subject properties were posted with a sign advertising the public hearing. The notices were also available on the township website, and the notice circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a specified person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn before the variances are granted, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decisions of the Committee of the Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn on the proposed minor variances, you must make written request to the Secretary of the Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn by email or Dropbox. So the first application today is A04-24. This is for 3259 Fire Route 50 in the Smith Ward. The proposal is to redevelop the subject lands with a 337.1 square meter or roughly 3,600 square foot dwelling, including an attached garage, screened room, and an open deck. The variances being requested are to reduce the minimum interior side yard setback from 3 meters to 1.56 meters, to increase the maximum lot coverage of all buildings and structures from 20% to 21%, to reduce the minimum high water mark setback from 30 meters to 13.1 meters to a dwelling, and to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 12.5 meters to an open deck. We have comments from both the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority and the County of Peterborough Public Works Department stating no concern. With regard to the 4 tests of a minor variance, I have the opinion that it does meet the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I recommend this application for approval. With regard to the archaeological assessment at this site, given the expansion of the proposed dwelling beyond the existing footprint, an archaeological assessment appears to be warranted, and this has been noted as a condition of approval. And those are my comments.
Thank you very much. And I understand that the agent, Holly Richards Conley, is on the line. Is there anything you wish to add to these comments?
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt. Holly's actually not available, but we have Tasia, who is the applicant.
Okay, so Tasia, is there anything that you wish to add to the comments from our planner?
We did have the archaeological assessment, just if that makes a difference. And I have a letter from Lawrence. I can't remember the company name at this time, but they didn't find anything. So we have already done that part too, right. Just so you know.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here that will speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak against it? Seeing none, we'll bring it to committee. Any questions? I don't see any questions, so we'll move on to the next application, A5-24.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it's as you say, it's A5-24. This is for 2634 Fire Route 38. The application in this case is to redevelop the subject lands with a new 163.3 square meter or roughly 1,700 square foot dwelling, including a screen porch and a covered front entrance. The variance requested is to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 13.3 meters to a dwelling. Just going to double check one thing here, but anyway, so once again, I believe this is my opinion that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance. And I do recommend this application for approval. Once again, we have comments from the County Peterborough Public Works Department and from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. In this case, for A5, they're stating that a permit is required, and this has been noted in the conditions of approval. Once again, also in this case, with regard to the archaeological assessment, given the expansion beyond the existing footprint, an archaeological assessment is recommended.
Right.
Those are my comments.
Thank you very much. I will turn to the owner, Brian Higgins, who is online. Is there anything you wish to add to the comments of the planner? You're muted.
Got it. Yeah, the archaeological assessment has been started. I've been in touch with the firm that handles that.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak against it? Seeing none, I will bring it to committee. Are there any comments on this application or questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to A624.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for 326 Fife Avenue in the Smith Ward. In this case, the application is seeking relief to construct a 7.2 square meter or 77.5 square meter open deck addition to an existing deck. The setback request or the relief requested is to reduce the minimum high water setback from 30 meters to 28.5 meters to an open deck. Once again, with regard to the 4 tests of a minor variance, I believe, in my opinion, it does meet those 4 tests, and I recommend this application for approval. Once again, the County of Peterborough Public Works Department has submitted comments of no concern. And likewise, the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority has also submitted comments of no concern, also noting that permits may be required with regard to the proposal in this case, and that's noted as a condition of the approval. Those are my comments in this case.
Thank you. And Deputy Clerk, is there anyone here online in favor or against this application?
We have no one here for this application, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions bringing it to committee? Seeing none, we'll move on to A0724, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a little bit unusual application. This is for 9 Burnham Street in the Lakefield Ward. This is not a 45-1 minor variance. It's a 45-2 permission to expand a legal non-conforming use. The existing residential dwelling predates our current commercial zoning for the property. It is continuously being used for that residential use. So in order to permit an expansion, an addition to the residential dwelling, this permission is needed under 45-2 of the Planning Act. So that the specific permission is just to allow the a residential expansion within a commercial zone. So there's not the similar 4 tests of a minor variance. There's only 2 tests of the minor variance, whether the development is desirable and appropriate, and whether any undue adverse impacts are anticipated as a result of the expansion. In my opinion, given the residential nature of most of Burnham Street, as particularly as you travel westerly on Burnham, I find that the application is appropriate. I do recommend this application for approval. Once again, the County Peterborough Public Works Department has provided comments of no concern, and likewise the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority have noted that they have no concern as well, and that permits are not required from the Conservation Authority in this case. Those are my comments for that application.
Thank you very much. And is there anyone here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone to speak against? Do you have a question? Can you please go to the microphone, give your name and your ad? Oh. Oh, you're in favor. Okay. All right. And you don't wish to speak? Okay, thank you. Deputy Clerk, was there anyone online in favor or against?
We have no one else here for this application, Madam
Thank you
Chair.
very much. Okay, I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor Black. Oh, sorry.
No, thank you through chair.
Member Black.
Thank you through Chair Senis. Not a question really about this particular, but just Fair with regards to County Public Works have written back saying no comment on all four of them. Are they just part of the regular circulation? Because none of these are on a county road or anything like that. Just
Yeah, so through you, Madam Chair, that's exactly it. They're just part of the regular agency circulation standard circulation that all agencies get circulated on all the applications, and our contact there, Peter Hines, has taken upon himself to be diligent to provide those comments.
yeah, it's just it looks like a lot of work for no reason, really.
Yeah.
That's
Exactly.
okay. Thank
Are
you.
there any other questions or comments? Counselor Coolus. Oh, geez, Member Coolus.
Through you, and I'm only asking this because the first time I'm seeing this piece. With the above ground pool, is there a fence around it? And if so, does it impede any of the design on this?
So the pool issue would be separate from
Okay.
the application and would be the application of that and the regulations around that would be enforced by our bylaw enforcement officer and our building department.
I just want to make sure that they don't go ahead and then they have to tear something down or move something, just so they're aware ahead of time, like fence is needed, so. It's, I don't, how do we do this?
Through pair.
I was gonna say through pair, maybe specify the next steps in regards to discussing the regulations or our bylaws around the fence for a pool. Like, I know that's not yours, it's that you have to delegate it, do you not, or?
Perhaps what you can do is have a chat after with our planner or our building department manager with regards to that. Really has nothing to do with what's in front of us. All right? Any other question? No? All right, I'm looking for a motion to approve these four applications. Member Henry and Member Boyko, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. I need a motion to approve Committee of Adjustment meeting minutes of February the 27th. Member Black and Member Boyko, all in favor? That's carried, thank you. And motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is May the 28th. Member Henry and Member Black, all in favor? That's carried, thank you very much. Screen. All right, we're going to move right into our council meeting of April the 23rd, 2024. And we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mississauga and Anishinaabe. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Please observe a moment of silence so the council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you. Members of the public, staff and presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest, the general nature thereof? Please note in the minutes that there were none. We have the minutes of our last regular council meeting of April the 8th, 2024. Can I have someone to move those minutes? Councillor Coolus, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor, that's carried. Thank you. Is there a discussion out of the minutes? Seeing none, we will go to our first deputation. And I would like to welcome Patricia Bromfield, who is our chief for the Peterborough Paramedics. If you can take the microphone, thank you.
That's my eyesight.
Is your mic on?
Okay, I think I can hear me. Okay. I'll start with introducing myself. My name is Patricia Bromfield, and I accepted the chief appointment February 7th of this year. So I will be taking over for Randy Mallow when he continues on with his retirement, which will be at the end of this year. So thank you for having us today. I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about our public survey results, specifically to your municipality and your township. Oh, thank you. That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Just a little bit about us. Paramedic Services provides emergency medical care to the citizens and visitors of both the county and the city, with a combined population of just under 200,000 and a combined coverage area of just under 400,000 square footage. Our staffing consists of 76 full-time paramedics and an additional 64 part-time paramedics. In addition to that, we've expanded since the pandemic and have added additional paramedics consisting of 15 community paramedics. And as part of that whole team, we have a management team of 18. That includes 8 part-time supervisory staff, also 2 full-time logistics staff, and then we have our additional administrative staff as well. In regards to our locations, our base locations, we have 5 full-time base locations that are distributed throughout the city and the county, with Buckhorn being our seasonal, which we staff between April and October. We are also looking at preparations, hopefully at the end of this year in the fall, for a new facility, which is in partnership with Fire, located in Cavan Monaghan, and we're expecting that we'll be able to put our footprint in there at the end of this year. So October 2024 is our timeline. In levels of service for paramedics, we have 2 levels of service that we provide. The first consisting of primary care paramedics, and then we have an additional skill set that we attribute to our advanced care paramedics. Once they complete school, they have ongoing education, which consists of a total of 32 hours that's required as annual training. That includes training with our base hospital, our overseeing governance body for the levels of care we provide to the community. And we also provide in-service type of training, which is more specific to our internal needs, as well as county and city platforms and other additional information that's required. Just in the way of pillars, we're separated into what we call 4 pillars. So under me, Patricia Bromfield, as the chief, there's the administration. So we are responsible for the creation of our benchmarks, strategic planning, and meeting the expectations of our stakeholders and making sure that we're meeting the expectations of our stakeholders. In addition to that is our budget and financial responsibility, as well as being transparent and reporting functions to council as well as to the public, and also our governance bodies, including the Ministry of Health. Alongside that is our Deputy Chief of Operations. That would be Ryan Maloney. Ryan Maloney is responsible for everything that provides the equipment and the tools for the paramedics to be able to bring the level of care to the citizens in the community. Also staffing and onboarding responsibilities. And he's responsible for any procurement in regards to capital projects such as fleet and equipment. Don Ottinger is our Deputy Chief of Professional Standards. Don Ottinger is responsible for that quality assurance piece and the clinical side of things, making sure that our paramedics are meeting the quality assurance requirements that are dictated through the Ministry of Health and our Ambulance Act, as well as making sure that we are meeting the standards as set forth by our communities that we serve. In addition to that, ensuring the health and well-being of our paramedic staff. Alongside Don Ottinger is Deputy Chief of Community Programs and Emergency Management, Craig Jones. Craig oversees all of the community programs that include community paramedics, educational programs, and public access defibrillator programs that are distributed throughout the community. Also oversees special projects, and a big part of that portfolio includes the emergency management piece. Just to give you a little bit of an overview and the way of our funding model. 50% of our funding is provided by the province through the Ministry of Health. And that other 50% is shared between the city and the county, with this year looking like the city's contribution of that 50% is 56.64%, whereas the county's contribution to that additional 50% is 43.36%. So now I'm going to get into a little bit about some of the metrics we use. Under the Ambulance Act, we are required to set standards in the way of our response time. We submit these every year, they're reviewed, and the expectation is that we are able to meet these targets. You'll see in this chart that we continue to meet our targets. In fact, we're able to exceed these targets, both combined with our city response and our county response. Except for this year, we were unable to respond to one CTES 1, and it was missed by basically one call. This is one of the metrics that we utilize to drive our deployment strategies, as well as to consider enhancement needs and how we are able to service the communities. I think it might be user error. Thank you. Another chart before you. This is one of our average response time graphs. This looks at our response time not only in minutes, but it includes our seconds. And this is encompassing of all response areas that we service. And you'll see by this chart that Selwyn's average response time is 12 minutes, 16 seconds, as opposed to the county average of 14 minutes, 35 seconds. This is inclusive of our lower priority or less urgent calls, including our more urgent or emergent calls. This chart before you is another summary. This is looking at our 2023 and our overall call volumes, which in 2023, we saw an increase in our call volumes at 2.26%. Average year over year increase is usually around the 3.87%, and that has been in the case for the last 5 years. In comparison, in 2023, Selwyn experienced 8,816 calls. That accounted for a total of 22.6% of our overall call volumes. Of those number of calls, just as a breakdown, 9.5% were considered to be less urgent, or what we call a code 3 priority. 23%, just over 23%, were code 4 or more urgent calls. And the highest amount of calls that we service within the Selwyn community is 66.82%, which are standby calls. Essentially, that's how we move our resources to account for gaps in our system. So non-transports, just people covering your area awaiting calls. Next, this is just a little bit in the demonstration of our system design and our deployment measures. This first category shows our average at hospital time, with the second category showing our average offload time. One of the things I just wanted to highlight here in the way of offload delay, our service experienced a total of 10,340 hours that were in excess of 30 minutes that we spent in hospital caring for patients. That results in a 1.2% of our staffed hours or an equivalent of 9 FTEs. That's time spent in hospital caring for patients. I would like to highlight, though, that this is not just a Peterborough problem. This is something that we're seeing across Canada. Essentially, I mean, we're seeing it even in North America and in other countries. There's many contributing factors that add to this offload problem, and that includes human resource issues, hospital closures, seeing EDs downsize, closing in areas. In addition to that, people that are unattached to primary care physicians or other primary care resources. So these are something that are in the forefront, and we are advocating on behalf of our profession as well as the system as a whole to start to look at this a lot closer. Oh, thank you. What I'm here today to talk to you about was the public survey results, and I just wanted to break that down a little bit for you. This is something that was implemented and began in 2022, and it's something that we will continue to do annually. One of the exciting things that we were able to see is that our survey participation is higher in the county as opposed to the city, considering that the vast majority of our call volumes are in the city. So the period that we're looking at when we post the survey, it was posted for a period of 3 months, so from October to December. We put these access to the survey out through social media platforms, roadside signage, and then when they receive hospital billing, we attach sort of that access to a survey or how to access a survey. Recognizing too that there are limitations with the buy-in or the compliance with the survey, which includes like distribution, access to survey tools, and other issues with sample size and such. Before I would like to go back, but I am going to point out that actually Selwyn accounted for 13% of the overall results. So that was significant compared to other counties. Thank you. Provisions of care. When we ask this question, please rate how you feel about the level of care provided to you by by paramedics overall, including the arrival, treatment, and transport. Overall respondents experienced with care provided by paramedics were very positive. 90% of county and 88% of city participants reported their care was very good or good, with an additional 9% reported that the care met their expectations or is considered to be okay. We recognize that we need to do a deeper review into this feedback. We recognize that some of the concerns are attributed with destinations, transport destinations, and or wait times for ambulance. The next question we asked was in the way of trust and confidence. How would you rate the level of trust and confidence that you have in ambulance service staff and their ability to provide care and treatment? The survey responses revealed a very high level of trust and confidence in PCCP staff and their ability to care, with an 85% overall rating that considered it to be high or very high, with a net value of trust and confidence. That total confidence level, which is confident, and very highly confident, is overwhelming at a high of 93%. 95% of that being city and 91% county for those areas combined. Last, one of the questions that we asked in the way of which of the following would best describe how you felt about the length of time you waited for the ambulance to arrive. 69% of respondents in Peterborough County and City report that the ambulance response time was as quick as expected. Response time satisfaction was higher in the city, which makes sense. That's where a lot of our resources are tied to, with 72% coming from the city as compared to the county being at 66%. Some of the lower levels of response time satisfaction was reported by respondents in municipalities, including Trent Lakes at 53% and Havelock, Belmont, Methuen at 54%. Our highest levels of response time satisfaction was reported by respondents in the municipalities of Otonabee, South Monaghan at 82% and North Kawartha at 77%. This last measure looks at our overall satisfaction. So please rate how satisfied you were overall with your last experience using the ambulance service. 8 in 10 patients in Peterborough County and City were satisfied with their most recent experience with PCCP paramedic service. Satisfaction among respondents within the city of Peterborough was reported at a higher rate than those of within the county, with 85% of city respondents reporting very high or a high level of satisfaction, 82% of county respondents reporting very high or high level of satisfaction. Some of the lower levels of satisfactions reported by respondents in municipalities included, again, North Kawartha at 23% and Trent Lakes at 20%. Our highest level of satisfaction was reported by respondents in municipalities of Apsley Norwood, 87.5%, and Havelock, Belmont, Methuen at 92.3%. As another metric that we use as part of this public survey results is, again, to help drive some of those needs to increase and improve our rural and northern deployment. That is also part of our strategic plan. And finally, opportunity for you to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Patricia. You're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
And we're so happy that you're there for us. Are there any questions from council? Deputy Mayor Blunt.
Through you, Mayor Sennis, just a couple of questions. Thanks, Chief, for the presentation. The mayor and I have had some benefit of seeing some of the slides before, but just a couple of quick questions. You mentioned additional 32 hours of training every year, and 16 of it, I think you said it was in hospital. Does the service have a medical director that's appointed as the medical director? And those are for renewals of delegated medical acts or something is what they have to do it for? Is that true? Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Sennis. That's correct. So we do offer in-service we call them in-service CMEs, where our base hospital, our medical director drives that education platform. So that will include if there's new standing orders or new directives that are being delivered, that's part of where that training would occur. Or alternatively, there may be things or trends that they want to address, things that we don't often see, thankfully, things such as like pediatric trauma, other things that are less frequent where we actually get hands-on. So that sometimes is part of the training. We utilize those other in-service hours to deliver the things that we tend to identify as trends. Again, areas where we see that paramedics may need additional training or improvement. And we allow them to kind of give us that information as well. What do you want to see? What is it that you want to work on? That could include airway management. That could include administration of some of the new medications that are coming our way. And some of that is just reviews of policies and procedures, including driver training and such. If that answers your question.
Follow?
Mm.
Yeah, no, I've said it before, this council table, we're so fortunate to have such a great paramedic service. I came to town when there was ambulance service and wasn't to the degree, and you guys have done such a great job in expanding the role to improve healthcare. And certainly that's had a big impact in the county, getting those services out to the county and people in the county. Your slide talked about response time and we met the response time as a service in general. But certainly the response time in the county is always a challenge. And one of the things that ratepayers should also understand is our fire department is also responding to a lot of those calls. So even though the average response by paramedics is 14.35 minutes compared to almost 7 minutes in the city, that average gives you compliance with the standard. But when you actually add in how quickly our firefighter actually getting there, I think we'd probably be pretty close to the city numbers as well, with our 5 halls and the great volunteers we have in the fire department. So I know the fire department is working with a new call system, or how often they're going to get called out. You're probably aware of that as well, which I think is needed, obviously, but residents should understand that even though the response time is slower than the city, which is understandable given the geography, that our fire department also responds. And in many cases, there are people there much quicker than the 14.35 seconds there to give help where they can. Yeah. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you.
Councillor Boyko.
Thank you for that presentation. It's terrific and nothing but respect for the work that you do. One of the slides that I thought was interesting was the deployment measures, the offload time, how the offload time is going up year after year. A lot of what you said is you have really no control over that because it's a matter of how quickly the doctors and the nurses and the other healthcare workers can take over from the patients that you have in the ambulance. So you don't have control over that. With the things that you do have control over, what kind of measures are you taking to try to get the response times down? I say now that 12 minutes in Selwyn is truly impressive. But what actions that you can control are you taking to reduce your response times?
Okay. Through you, Mayor Selwyn. Sorry. There's a few things that are actually underway one is being driven by the Ministry of Health, which we do hope to see that implemented by early next year. And one of those things is updating our dispatch system that we currently use. So they're introducing something that's called a medical priority dispatch system, which will take sort of our current system where we prioritize, we operate with really 2 priorities. We're looking at like a code 3 and a code 4 response. So the code 3 is the lower priority, whereas a code 4 would be more of an urgent priority. Those will be broken down into 5 determinants, which then looks at how we allocate our resources, which next year when I'm standing in front of you, you're going to see a very different presentation in the way of how those response time performance metrics, what they actually look like. Just to give you an example, I've worked in the system in the past. So some of those lower priority calls that are identified at the dispatch center, those could sit potentially for a longer period of time. And as part of that, that needs to be publicly communicated as how it's going to change. And the expectations may change depending on, the urgency of the call and when you should expect an ambulance to arrive. In addition to that, and Councillor Black, you were speaking to this, we just updated our actual tiered response agreement. And we will be revisiting that when the medical priority dispatch comes, because again, that will change how you respond to these calls. It really helps us to get the right resource to the right patient in the right time. And that could include at times where a resource that is available at that time that's on their way to a lower priority call may be redirected because it's the closest resource for a higher priority, more urgent call. So that's just an example of one of the things that we're doing. But in addition, some of the things that we're working at, like locally, we're working very closely with the Ministry of Health to help establish some programs that in partnership with Peterborough Regional Hospital for things where less urgent patients are seated in the waiting room. We call that a fit to sit criteria. They've implemented a program which is new. It's exciting on Mondays and Wednesdays where they have doctors sort of doing a triage through the ED to decide, do you need to wait? Can we put you in a waiting room, or can we move things quicker for a bed? Also working with them closely on some discharge strategies. So as opposed to having the incoming patients waiting for a room, looking at kind of a model where the patients that are being discharged are moved to the holding area, so we open up those spaces quicker. So there's lots of things that are going on in the background to help at least mitigate some of that time that we're spending in hospital and to decrease our unit utilization hours. So lots of great innovative strategies are being implemented.
That's excellent. Thank you. Well, I really look forward to next year's report then.
Yes.
To see how all this works out. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to receive the presentation. Councillor Henry and Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor. That is carried. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
We have another delegation and they're joining us virtually. So on the line, hopefully, we have Carrie Snoddy of the County of Peterborough and Betsy Varghese from Dillon.
Good morning or good afternoon. Is the afternoon now. Thank you very much for having us today. I'm Carrie. I'm the manager of waste management here for Peterborough County, and Betsy Varghese is here from Dillon Consulting. So we have two presentations for you today, one on the garbage upload analysis and one on a county organics program. So what we'd like to do is present the garbage upload study first, receive any questions, comments, feedback on that, and then I'll present the organic study. So starting with the garbage upload, the reason why we are looking at this and we're here today is that the county completed two different service level delivery reviews with different consultants, and this was a recommendation that we take a look at this in both, and we received approval from County Council to move forward with it. And what we're looking at is just if there's any cost savings or efficiencies in uploading garbage collection throughout the county from the 8 separate township contracts to one county-wide collection contract, with the respect and understanding that, you know, townships already offer a great level of service for residents with garbage collection. Just looking to see if there are any cost savings or efficiencies moving to one contract. And the study's been completed by Dillon Consulting. There's been participation from township staff and county staff. And so Betsy is going to present the study for you today. This was presented to County Council on February 21st, and they made a resolution. We come out to each of the townships to present and gather feedback as to whether you'd like to continue on with the study or to essentially opt out of the study at this time. So I will pass it over to Betsy now to present.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, everyone. So today I'm here to give you an overview of the project in our report. So what we looked at was developed a understanding of the background of the current state of waste management in each of the townships. We then looked at the consolidated approach, and there's a number of things that we looked at that are outlined here, which I'll go through with you today in today's presentation. And then I'll pass it back to Carrie to close off the presentation. So our project started in July 2023, and our work involved conducting a review of the existing waste management system at the township levels to gain insight and understanding of the current state. So we followed that up with interviews with each of the township representatives to gather input on the complexities of their unique waste management systems and what a future vision could look like. So at this point of the project, we're at task 4, and we've developed a consolidated approach for the county to collect garbage. We applied change management principles throughout the analysis to understand and incorporate the proposed consolidated approach to garbage collection services. Should the approach be deemed favorable by County Council, an implementation plan would then be developed to support the county in transition. And the findings of that would be documented in a final project report. So these last two tasks, tasks 5 and 6, would only occur should the approach be deemed favorable to continue. So this chart provides an overview of the amount of garbage that was managed within the county in 2022. So the graph on the left shows the amount of garbage that was collected at the curb, and the red shows the amount of garbage collected at depots. So in total, the county generated about 11,000 tons of garbage, but 7,000 of that was from the curbside and about 3,500 was from depots. And in terms of Selwyn, represents about 28% of the total waste managed within the county. So like I said, we conducted interviews with township representatives and we summarized that feedback into the main points that we heard and categorized it under strengths, issues and challenges, and opportunities. So in terms of strengths, Clear Bag program has been, many of the township representatives noted how much easier the program has been as the program has matured. There was initial pushback, of course, at the beginning of this, but they are seeing the benefits with a reduction in the amount of garbage that is sent, or amount of waste that's sent to landfill, and more participation in recycling. Secondly, the bag tag program and how that has helped township staff with enforcement. And with staff, the staff indicated that they have a good relationship with the private contractor and that the contractor is willing to return for missed collections and will collect from transfer stations on an on-call basis. In terms of issues and challenges, equipment, so back to the contractor, some townships commented that with equipment breaking down, it can result in delays in collection because the contractor does not have a lot of backup equipment available. Animal concerns with and wildlife issues at the transfer stations in particular. And when animals get into that, that leaves the township staff responsible to clean up the mess. And then customer service. This is a resounding theme that came across in our consultations and of importance to the residents and to the townships. And so there was commentary about the county's customer service for the recycling program. So that if this were to be uploaded, that there would need to be strengthened communication efforts to prevent complaints from going back to the townships. Opportunities, staff time. So many townships commented that this could offload, the uploading responsibility could offload staff time that is currently spent dealing with complaints. Cost efficiencies. So all the townships were interested to see what sort of efficiencies could be realized in terms of cost or level of service. Some townships noted that the tendering of the recycling contract was expensive and have suggested implementation of a cost plan geared towards the municipalities if the county were to move forward. In education, so again, if the county were to move forward, many townships would want to be very clear with who was responsible for promotion and education and how the program will be rolled out. So that gives a little bit of a background. The next slides will talk about our approach for the consolidated management of garbage collection at the county level. So in terms of us to do this analysis, we made several assumptions. We carried out 2 base case scenarios. So base case 1 was all 8 municipalities would opt into a consolidated approach. Base case 2, we had 7 municipalities opt into the consolidated approach. And as per Kevin Monaghan's council resolution, the township had decided to opt out of the consolidated approach, but they did agree to participate in the study. So base case 2 assumes that they will not be included in the proposed approach. Other assumptions was that as directed by county council, we would maintain the same level of service currently provided by the townships, which would include all properties that currently receive garbage collection would continue to receive garbage collection. Garbage would be collected weekly and clear bags would still be used. Another assumption was that the townships would retain ownership and operation of their respective transfer stations and to provide a consistent program across the county. Some changes were required in our assumptions that we use for this analysis to bag limits and or the bag tag program. So this table summarizes what those changes would be. So along the first row is what our assumption would be on what the consolidated approach is. So that is having a 2 bag per week limit for residential garbage, 6 bags per week for commercial customers, and no allowance of bag tags. So that would require a change for Selwyn in that respect. So like we've said, a strong promotion education program would be required to communicate these changes with specific messaging to the townships affected, as well as the continued functioning of the local depots. So one of the important things to do would be to communicate those changes and who to contact, and having a simplified messaging that's coming from the county could be seen as an improvement. It's noted that customer service inquiries for concerns related to the transfer stations would still be directed to township staff, as they would retain ownership and operation of the transfer stations. Another thing we did in our study was to take a look at all of the waste collection contracts. So we received copies of all of the contracts to understand what the current terms were and potential timelines could be for a consolidated approach. So given the varied nature, as you can see, what this chart shows is the dark orange is what the current contract period is, and the dashed or the lighter bars are where there's potential for extensions to those existing contracts. So given the varied nature, it would be necessary to extend most of the contracts past their current allowable timelines, which would also depend on how long planning and council approval would take, and that this timing would require all townships accepting their contract extensions, except for North Kawartha, and every municipality except for Otonabee South Monaghan would require additional extensions on top of their currently allowable extensions. So this would, based on the review of the collections, the earliest that the transition could occur would be in January 2026. So some other things to note: that the RFP for a county-led garbage collection contract would be written, bid on, and selected by the county. The contract terms and conditions of all the existing township contracts would require consolidation to ensure sufficient notice is being provided, so that the contracts are extended and terminated at the same time as the county-led contract would begin. And in terms of Blue Box transition, producers have assumed responsibility effective January of this year. And so now Blue Box services at the curb and depots that were previously provided by the county are now transitioned to the Producer Responsibility Organization, Circular Materials Ontario. So this slide just talks about some of the staffing requirements and changes that would be required. So in terms of staffing and transition requirements, county staff anticipate that current staffing levels would be sufficient to handle the garbage collection program, with the exception of additional temporary staffing to handle the initial inquiries that could result in the first few months of the transition. It's assumed that the county and townships would have a dedicated county-led transition team to help with overseeing the transition plan and implementation to meet those target transition dates. It's assumed that the consolidated approach would be funded through taxation, and that residents that receive the service would pay for the service. Bylaws would need to be updated. So the county bylaw would need to be updated to establish their power to provide curbside garbage collection, and the townships would need to repeal and adopt the new revised bylaws that reference the new county bylaw. This table just highlights some of the potential pros and cons associated with a consolidated approach. So in terms of cons, there would be some modifications to bag limits, bag tags, and collection days. There could be initial customer confusion. The work that we did in our analysis were based on costs that we had available to us today, and that there could be there is uncertainty surrounding costs given the market conditions. So what the cost would be when it's time to implement is something that would leave a little uncertainty. And then, of course, the uncertainty associated with townships that are opting in and out of the approach. In terms of potential pros, there would be one contract to manage, consistent promotion, education, and delivery of service, simplified messaging, potential for more efficient collection routes if there are no township boundaries or borders that are in place for the waste collection contractor, and reduced number of vehicles traveling on county roads, and potential efficiencies if there is a new waste diversion program that could potentially be managed under one contract. So one of the first steps that we did was use our collection system model, and that was to help us understand what the potential efficiencies could be in terms of the number of collection vehicles required with moving towards a single tier curbside collection program. So we've highlighted some of the inputs on this slide here, things like the number of households served, number of collection weeks, some collection route factors that are noted there, amount of garbage and organics collected, and information about collection vehicles. We ran a number of different collection scenarios. So they are all combinations that are showing both the two base case scenarios that I spoke about earlier. So scenarios 1 and 2 are those two base case scenarios with all townships having a separate contract. So that's first one. And then the second scenario is all townships except for Cavan Monaghan with separate garbage collection contracts. Scenarios 3 and 4 consider a single county's collection system with the number of households falling under scenarios 1 or 2. Scenario 5 looked at a reduction in the number of households. So just a combination of various townships that could be looked at under this. Scenarios 6 and 7 look at a separate county contract for curbside organics. Scenarios 8 and 9 look at a combined county collection contract for garbage and organics. And scenarios 10 and 11 look at a combined collection contract with garbage collected every other week and organics collected weekly. So a number of different scenarios that we wanted to get a handle on what the modeling output shows. So in terms of the collection model and what sort of vehicle efficiencies could be achieved under these different scenarios are shown in this table. So scenarios 3 to 5 were compared against the base case scenarios 1 and 2. And we see a reduction in standard vehicles from between 3 to 5. And a reduction in small vehicles. So some of those smaller collection vehicles that access private roads, as an example, the reduction would range from 1 to 3 vehicles. And then with potential efficiencies associated with co-collecting organics and garbage at the county level is also shown here, where scenarios 8 and 9 were compared against the total vehicles of scenarios 1 and 2, which is separate garbage collection, and 6 and 7, which is separate organics collection. So next thing we did was use that information to help us with understanding what the potential financial impacts could be. So we were trying to understand a high-level cost analysis, and the inputs are noted here. So looking at the contract information, the pricing in the contracts as an example, the tonnages collected, household schedule, financial statements, and the results from the modeling that I just shared with you. So in terms of financial impacts, the curbside collection contracts, so this shows that, or based on our review of the collection contracts, the total value for all 8 municipalities is about 1.4 million per year, and or 1.1 million without Cavan Monaghan. And so obviously the cost savings will occur if the county's contract is less than the total value of the combined township contracts. In terms of staffing and administration costs, there's no dedicated staff at the township levels that manage contracts, and so that time spent is not tracked or budgeted separately. We assume that the township would still continue to handle some customer service inquiries like at the transfer station. So in our assumption, we assume that there would be no reduction in staffing levels at the township level, and assume that any time spent on waste management would be redirected to other work. So no cost savings related to township staffing is anticipated. This slide illustrates the potential annual savings to the county under different scenarios. So as mentioned before, the greatest savings would be gained if all townships opt into the consolidated approach. So on the left side, it shows going from all households to down to 35 to 45% of households. So we wanted to see what that tipping point was before there were no cost savings realized. And so The savings are shown on the fourth column there, with all households participating, seeing a range in cost savings between 25 and 33%, down to 10 to 15% should 35 to 45% of households be participating. And the per household savings is estimated to be in the range of $10 to $14 without Cavan Monaghan, which could be used potentially to fund other programs like an organics collection program, or potentially to reduce the individual property tax rate for waste management services. Other financial impacts to the county. So in terms of bin collection and haulage, so the contracts had separate pricing for the curbside collection costs, plus a separate cost for hauling or collecting and hauling the garbage collected at the transfer stations and transporting it down to the landfill facility. So the county would also upload that cost of collecting the transfer station bins and hauling for disposal. So there'd be no savings in that respect. And the estimated cost based on our review of the contracts is estimated to be about $450,000 a year. Under staffing and administrative costs, the county would assume responsibility for the management and maintenance of the consolidated contract and some of the customer service inquiries typically handled by the townships. Like I mentioned before, we assume that in the first 6 months, the county would require interim staff. So we've estimated a half a full-time equivalent to handle those initial inquiries and to support the transition. But staffing requirements would be something that would be looked at if the project proceeds to the implementation planning. Assuming a separate organics collection contract similar to the county curbside garbage collection, we developed a high-level estimate of what the potential costs would be. So it's between $650,000 and $850,000 without Cavan Monaghan for a separate organics collection contract. And then estimated contract costs for various contract and scenario types are listed on this table here. Conservatively, cost savings related to co-collection would be in the range of 40 to 60% of the organic collection contract. And so the potential per household savings is in the range of $15 to $17 without Cavan Monaghan. So in January, after we had completed our initial assessment of what the consolidated approach could look like, we went back to all of the township representatives that we had communicated with in the summer to do a second round of interviews and share the preliminary results of this consolidated approach. So the feedback that we received is documented in our report, but some of the main themes that we heard was related to efficiencies that the proposed approach could bring. So there was a lot of questions about the reduced number of trucks and what the potential cost efficiencies could be. There was an opportunity that people were asking about being able to provide input on an eventual program, if there would be opportunities to opt in or out at a later date. And if more questions again surrounding how residential inquiries and complaints would be handled. So with that, I'll pass it back to Carrie.
Thanks, Betsy. So finally, we have the resolution that was passed by County Council here for your consideration. So they've directed us to come present to the local municipalities and request a motion from each council to be sent to County Council, indicating either A or B. So A is that the township supports inclusion of the local municipality to continue on with the implementation costing process, noting that this doesn't mean that you're committed at this time to uploading garbage to the county. We would come back to the townships afterwards, after we presented to County Council with all of the updated information. Or B, that the township does not wish to be included in the implementation costing process of the garbage upload study and essentially opt out at this point. So county staff will report all of these results back to County Council for a decision moving forward. And that concludes the presentation. So we're happy to take any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much, Carrie and Betsy. And before I turn it over to council for questions, I am part of the Waste Management Committee at the county, and this has been a long road getting to this point even. I can tell you that the county of Peterborough is one of the very few upper tiers that is not collecting garbage. Most of the upper tiers in the province are collecting garbage now. We're one of the last holdouts, and we're used as a bad example at places like Roma that say, you know, don't do what the county of Peterborough does. So I think it should end up that there are economies of scale if it's done through one contract to be collected. And it would definitely reduce the carbon footprint, which is, again, something we're trying to achieve in our efforts with sustainability and with climate change. So because we have less trucks. So I will, and the reason that we had asked at the county for this to come to each of the townships is because we need to know who actually is interested in opting in or opting out, because there is a tipping point where it doesn't make any sense to make a change. So once we know how many municipalities are interested, an expression of interest could be sent out to the haulers to see who, you know, who's interested in doing the job. And then we would end up getting costing back to see if we're really interested in proceeding or not. So I will now turn it to council for any questions. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Senes. Thank you for your presentation. One of the cons that you had mentioned in your list was uncertainty surrounding costs due to changing market condition. The rural residents of Selwyn need to know that garbage pickup will remain the same as it is now, considering that there are some remote properties and roads with only a limited number of houses on it. Regardless of costing changes, can our citizens expect the same delivery of services or pickup of our garbage as what we've been used to? And also with that, I know we're going to talk about green waste here shortly, but if green waste pickup is being expanded with the intention of reducing impacts on landfill sites, why are some areas seeing an increase in the amount of allowed bags being put out for pickup?
Through the mayor, I can touch on that question. So when this study was approved by county council, it was with the caveat also in the resolution that we would maintain the same level of service that exists right now. So yes, all residents that receive curbside collection in Selwyn or anywhere else in the county that would be part of this would continue to receive that service. That's also due to that resolution is the same reason we looked at that 2-bag limit for residential and the 6-bag limit for commercial, because we wanted to maintain within the study the highest level of service received by each township and just make that consistent across the board. So we would be open to whatever county council decides or whatever is decide on as a bag limit. That 2-bag limit doesn't necessarily have to be the limit in this future option if we get to that point. It was just trying to maintain a consistent level of service across the townships.
Thank you.
You, Deputy Mayor Black.
Through you, Mayor Senes. Thanks for the presentation, Carrie and Betsy. You know, I think given Selwyn Township is 28% of the waste in the county, and I'm not proud of that, but it's a fact. You know, looking at your costing numbers and percentage that have to be in, if Kevin Monaghan and Selwyn are out, it doesn't look good from a prospect of moving in that direction. So I do support moving forward with the study further. You know, I've got a bit of a background in efficiency, and I think it's certainly something that needs to be looked at. We're looking at reducing the number of vehicles on the road, and as the mayor mentioned, CO2 emissions targets we have for the township would certainly benefit from fewer trucks on the road and no boundaries or between townships, so trucks can move more efficiently. So I do believe there will be efficiencies. The question is, does that translate into lower prices? We've seen a lot of different contracts more recently go up considerably. And so those, while we may have some efficiencies, we don't necessarily always have reducing costs. I firmly believe that it has to be done with the organics program. And, you know, Councillor Henry's question around bag limits would be affected by that. We recently moved up to the larger food cycler because we do use it a lot, and we only put a bag out every 2 weeks now because of organics. I believe takes up at least 50% of the garbage that's being put out. So certainly bag limits would be very easily to go back to one if it's included. But I think the benefit of a countywide collection program for waste will provide the opportunity for countywide organics collection, which I think has to happen. The province is going to legislate no more organics going into landfills. I think by 2030 is the expectation. So we have to have that program in place, and looking forward to your next presentation, obviously, but I believe the best is a combination of both. A lot of rural residents won't necessarily use an organics program because they have a backyard composter or they have a farm property where some of that waste is going for food for animals. But I think it has to be offered countywide as part of the collection in the same vehicle. I think is the most efficient and cost effective of all. And just a question for maybe for our staff. What is our average cost per household for waste? I know I should have sent that question along to you sooner, but we have numbers in here talking about average. Do we have an idea what that number is right now?
Our contract is about $400,000, so we'd have to do a little bit of math, but we can get that back to you. Okay.
Just for comparison to see
Yep.
again from a cost savings, are we part of that cost savings or not?
Yeah, for sure. And I think the one thing we need to be a little bit cautious of is the fact that our contracts have been extended and extended and extended. So our costs now actually may be a little bit lower than what we might see if we went out on our own. So they're maybe a little bit understated what they've been over the last number of years than if we had gone out for renewal of contracts.
Yeah, I think that was part of my point.
Yep.
Understanding the numbers better. Thank you.
All right, so if there are no other questions, Carrie, were you going to make a presentation about the organics or, okay, would you like to, first of all, do we want to deal with the resolution as it relates to garbage upload analysis? As far as it would be the Township of Selwyn supports the inclusion for further consideration of the implementation and costing process related to the upload of garbage collection services to the County of Peterborough, with the understanding that this does not commit the township to participating in the upload of these services at this time. Okay.
I'll second it.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by seconded by Councillor Boyko. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, Carrie, let's hear about organics.
Okay. Can you see my presentation okay?
Yep.
Great. All right. So as mentioned, we've been reviewing options for a county organics program alongside the garbage upload study over the last couple of years. And so we are here to present to you today, again, the different options that we've looked at and receive some feedback from you. So I want to start with why are we looking at an organics program and why this is important in Peterborough County. So this is an initiative outlined in the county's waste management master plan, which looks at all the initiatives that we will implement waste management related. And there's a goal in that plan to meet a 60% diversion rate by 2030. So if we did implement a countywide organics program, we estimate we could divert about 4,500 tons per year of organics from landfill. So we would exceed that goal of 60% diversion with an implementation of an organics program. It could also extend the lifespan of our landfill by 2 to 3 years. The Peterborough landfill that the majority of waste goes to in Peterborough County has about 10 years left of site life. And so by implementing an organics program and getting that tonnage out of landfill, it could extend the lifespan. And then it will also extend the lifespan of any future option that is in place once that landfill is full and we need to find a new option. We want to delay that process as long as possible because citing a new landfill or landfill expansions could be anywhere from $10 to $50 million. So by creating a more sustainable option, this will benefit us financially long term. There is resident demand for an organics program. We receive questions from residents all the time. Why don't we offer this service? And we did send out a survey back when we were conducting this organic study back in 2021, asking residents if they would like an organics program, and over 60% of the residents that responded strongly agreed that we should have one. There are many neighboring municipalities that have implemented successful programs in rural areas as well. So for example, Northumberland County has had a successful program in place since 2019. City of Kawartha Lakes is moving forward with a program, and City of Peterborough is a recent example of a very successful program that's been put in place. The province has also discussed that they are considering banning food waste from landfill by 2030. This was part of their 2018 Made in Ontario Environment Plan, but within the last year, they've recommitted to this goal. So if we implement a program now, whether at the county level or at township levels, this will help us get ahead of the curve for that if that does take place in 2030. A program will also significantly reduce the county's greenhouse gas emissions. So when organics break down in the landfill, they create methane gas, which is a very harmful greenhouse gas, much more harmful than carbon dioxide. So it does significantly reduce our emissions if we divert that from landfill. And then finally, there are opportunities for efficiencies with other material collections. So we've been talking about co-collecting organics and garbage together. This creates efficiencies, further reduces the amount of trucks on the road and greenhouse gases. So when this was originally presented to council in February as well, there were 3 options that we presented. The first is a curbside organics program for all residents in the county and properties that currently receive garbage and blue box collection. The second was a countertop composting option, and the third was a hybrid option of the 2. We did receive some comments and feedback from County Council at that time that there may be interested in urban areas only curbside collection options. So I have added that option to this presentation for your consideration as well. So option 1, curbside organics program for all residents and as well commercial properties that currently receive garbage and blue box collection in the county. In this option, we would purchase and deliver green bins and kitchen catchers to all of these properties. The organics could be processed at the City of Peterborough Organics facility, which is right next to the landfill that the curbside waste already goes to. And we could co-collect potentially the organics with the garbage, resulting in a lower impact on the roads. So the pros of this option, it's more of a familiar option for residents than, say, the countertop composting option potentially. Could be considered less of a learning curve or less work. More items can go in the green bin program than in a countertop composter or backyard composter, things like pet waste, fats, and greases. It's also easier to measure diversion in a program like this because we would have weights of the organics going to the facility. It could encourage the partnership with the City of Peterborough because we'd be processing the material at their facility, and we could co-collect with garbage or other materials. Cons of this option, it is a more expensive option than a countertop composter option. There would be the potential for more greenhouse gases than a countertop option because there would be more vehicles on the road collecting. Not every resident can participate in a program like this. There are 2 townships in the county, Trent Lakes and Havelock Belmont Methuen, that don't have curbside collection for all of their residents. So those areas wouldn't necessarily be part of this program. And there could be some wildlife concerns for residents having their organics set out at the curb. Option 2 is a countertop composting option. In this option, we would provide countertop composters for free to all households in the county. We would put out an RFP to include delivery, customer service, extended warranty, and maintenance of these countertop composters. We would have an extensive ongoing promotion education campaign, and we suggest it be phased in over a 3-year period. So pros of this option, it's a less expensive option than a curbside for all option, lower greenhouse gas emissions, less impacts on roads. Residents can benefit from the byproduct that the composter creates. The county would be a leader first in Ontario for an option like this. There would be less wildlife concerns potentially because the composters are kept inside. All households could participate in this program, whether they had curbside pickup or not. This option isn't contingent on the results of the garbage upload study, so it could be implemented sooner potentially. And there have been very positive results from pilot programs for the townships who have completed them so far, like with the food cycler programs and things like that. Cons of this option, less items can go in the composters. There would potentially be more education needed to teach residents how to use them and do workshops. Could be considered more work. It would be harder to measure the diversion, and the units would need to be replaced over time. This option wasn't necessarily well received, I would say, in the presentations we've done so far. There's been more interest in a curbside option, but I just figured we present all the options for everybody. And then the third option would be a hybrid option of curbside and countertop composters. So the residents who do have curbside collection would receive curbside organics pickup. And for the households that don't have collection, they would receive a countertop composter. Pros of this option would be all households could participate, but cons, this would be the most expensive option. Different programs for different households could cause confusion, and households may want to participate in a different program than would necessarily be available to them. And the last option that I have is a urban area collection only for organics option. So we did look at this option, but we didn't recommend it on a staff level, and I'll talk a little bit about why. But there was interest in this option, so I've added it to the presentation. So in this option, we would provide curbside collection in urban areas throughout the county. Just as an example for this presentation, I've used the current areas we collect leaf and yard waste from in the county. We collect in built-up areas throughout. This would be about 7,250 households, but if this option was selected, we would go through with each township and pick areas that they were interested in having included in the program. So in this example in Selwyn, this would include Arnott and Gifford Drive areas, Bridge North, Ennismore, Emerald Isle, Lakefield, Terraview Heights, and Woodland Acres, and Youngstown. If we had full participation in this type of program, diversion could be up to 1,200 tons per year, which is about a quarter of the diversion of a full countywide program. And I won't go through these or keep them up for very long, but these are just the maps of the different areas in Selwyn that we collect leaf and yard waste from that would be included in this program. And those are in your package, so I'll go through these relatively quickly. And so the pros of this option, it would be the least expensive option by far. The cons, there would be significantly lower diversion and minimal landfill site life extension. We expect a low participation rate in a program like this, and so the diversion would likely be even lower than that 1,200 tons. The reason we anticipate a low participation rate in a program like this is because if you have programs in pocketed areas, but then there are residents living nearby there that don't have the program, there's not a lot you can do to incentivize residents' participation in the program other than promotion education. If all areas had the program, you can do things like lower the bag limits or collect garbage every other week, things like that, that incentivize those residents who are a little more hesitant to start using a green bin to participate in the program. And so as an example of this, we have a curbside collection program in Bridge North that's been in place since 2006. And we've done door-to-door advertising throughout the year, lots of promotion education. And the participation rate in that program is only 11% of the households that have that service available to them participating. So you get those people who are really interested and want to use their green bin, but then you need other measures in place to be able to get that higher participation rate for the rest of the residents. And it's challenging to do that when not everyone's created equal. We do anticipate customer service challenges and frustration with a program like this. With our leaf and yard waste program, we collect urban areas only. We get lots of frustrated residents calling every season when we offer this program that they aren't included and they want to be. And the other issue is so deciding how to fund this program. If you tax all residents for this program, there would be residents paying for the program that didn't receive the service. But if you tax only the residents that did receive the service, it'd be extremely expensive for that program to them because there's a small number of properties included. And then the other challenge with this type of program is there is no efficiencies or economies of scale. So we couldn't collect commingled with garbage in the same vehicle, and we'd be reaching pockets throughout the county. So there's not really any efficiencies. So some considerations for any type of program. Participation would benefit greatly if we were able to implement some of those other measures like garbage collection every other week or lowering bag limits. A strong promotion and education program would definitely be required for all options. A spring or summer startup time would be ideal for any type of program. I know we talked with the garbage upload that we could start as early as January 2026, but really in order to capture as many residents as possible in the promotion, education, and startup, it would be more beneficial to start in a spring or summer season to capture all the seasonal residents as well. And the county would continue to offer mullock drop-off at the transfer stations that we currently offer it at. So I have some cost estimates here for each option. I do anticipate that these cost estimates will decrease. So just from presenting so far to the other townships, there are some townships who were not interested in any sort of county organics program. So we will revisit these cost estimates when this is brought back to county council. And so for the different options that include curbside collection, I have two cost estimates. So for example, in option one, if we didn't co-collect organics with garbage, the organics would be significantly more expensive to collect than if we had that co-collection contract. And we presented the first three options to the county's Waste Management Committee before going to County Council. The Waste Management Committee recommended County Council consider option one, which was the curbside organics collection for all. And then County Council, when we presented, directed us to bring this to each township for feedback before making any decision. And this was the resolution we received, so that we be directed to present to the townships, and either one, that the township supports the county continuing to investigate a county-wide organics program and provides direction to the county as to what methods of organic collection they would like considered, including curbside for all, curbside for urban only, or other considerations, or that the township does not wish to proceed with a county-wide organics program. County staff will report back to County Council with the results of both the organics options and garbage upload study and ask for direction moving forward. And that concludes my presentation. So happy to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Carrie. And again, a couple of comments before I pass it over to my colleagues for questions or comment. In Bridge North, it is a very low success rate with this. But the reason for that is there's a ick factor, is what they call it, because they're not allowed to use compostable bags to put their organics in. They have to put it in this bin thing and then constantly clean it, and consequently, a lot of people don't even want to go there. They just don't use it, and that's why it's only 11%. With this new composting collection that we're talking about here, compostable bags will be able to be used, correct?
Yes, that's correct. The reason why they weren't historically able to be used in Bridgenorth was due to the processing facility that the organics were going to. But once the Peterborough's organics facility is up and running and the material will be going there, any sort of county program, there will be bags allowed.
Okay, thank you very much. And we have gone through a process with our garbage with clear bags, and I think there was a lot of trepidation on council's part as to, you know, how that would be received. There would be a lot of complaints, but it went smoothly. And we have managed to cut down on garbage because we are using clear bags now, because a lot of it's now being put where it should be, in the recyclable containers. And with the first producer collecting the recyclables now, there was a lot of concern with that because there was major changeover, but it's gone relatively well too, without a lot of complaints, correct?
For sure, yeah, it's been quite smooth, the transition to producer responsibility of the blue box. It's the same contractor collecting, and we haven't really received too many calls or concerns since the program started.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're well aware with the leaf and yard waste, where some have it collected and others don't, about the have and have not situation, and I don't want to go there again. So I'll now open it to questions from my colleagues. Deputy Mayor Black.
Thank you, through Mayor Senes, support all your comments as well. For me, certainly option one makes the most sense. It includes everybody that wants to participate in curbside and with collection of waste, as I said earlier, I think is the most economical and realistic approach to it. By making it universal, you can put limits on any organic waste in garbage, so everybody has to participate. It's not an option, or their bag at some point doesn't get picked up if there's organics in it. I think option one allows that to happen on a fair and equitable basis for all residents. I'm completely against option two, which is food cycler purchases for every household. I'm a big fan of food cycler. Like I said, we've grown up to the bigger one now. But I suspect we'll see hundreds of them on Marketplace the day after they're delivered in the original box. That would be a concern for me, as well as you have to replace them. If you use them every day, they'll last a couple of years, but there's a huge replacement cost to them down the road. So I'm not a big fan of going that route as the main option, even though again I do support that as an option for my household. I do believe also with, again, going to the universal approach, not everybody will participate because, as I said earlier, we have a lot of seasonal residents who are only there, through a certain part of the year, and probably wouldn't end up, doing an organics program when they're at their cottage for 2 days a week or something like that for 3 months. So I think, those are options as well. Again, agricultural farms and so on, they already take care of that. And many rural residents already take care of it themselves through backyard composting and so on. So I do believe option one is, in the long run, is the most efficient from a financial point of view, as well as a fair and just approach to all residents as far as removing organics from the waste stream, as I think we'll have to regardless down the road. So.
Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Koulis.
Through you, can you just clarify, and I might have missed it, but educational resources, are those costs in the calculations you provided? Okay, what exactly does that look like? I'm sorry if I missed that. Like, is it county led? Is it township led?
Through the mayor, so it would be county-led promotion education. We have a good blueprint with what the city of Peterborough has just done as well for promotion education. So we would do things like potentially radio ads, road signs, online advertising. We do send out a County of Peterborough mail out through Canada Post a couple times a year that goes out to all residents. So we would educate through that. Another thing that's been very successful in recent programs is doing like public meetings, town halls where residents can come ask questions. And we would do that throughout the townships that would be part of this program as well.
Can you just clarify what percentage of that cost is allocated to education? Is it very low?
It's fairly low. I don't think that the education would be, it would be under $100,000 for the startup. It would likely be significantly lower than that within the costs.
Thank you.
Okay, and another comment. I'm on the city county waste management committee as well. And there is a fee that the city has put for garbage that is, even if it's in a clear bag, if it has organics in it, they can charge us more. They haven't been doing that because I went after them and said, look, we were at clear bags years before you started. So you better not be charging us for this extra if there's organics, especially when we don't have it in place yet. They're not doing it yet, but it's in future plans. So it's going to cost us more if we don't do some kind of an organics program. If there are no other questions, there in this particular resolution, it just says investigate options. Do we want to leave it open at that or say just option one? And what does council prefer? Who's got their hand up? Nobody?
I guess in our
Janice?
proposed recommendation, we do suggest that it would be a co-collection system with garbage. So
Yes.
curbside collection, co-collection with garbage would be
Yeah.
our recommendation.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, we had a recommended resolution on your agenda page. Yeah.
Which is number one.
Which is like
Okay.
number
Yeah.
one, which is a little bit more specific. Yep.
Okay. All right.
And I will second it.
Okay, so moved by Deputy Mayor Black, seconded by Councillor Boyko, all in favor. Okay, that carried. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We would, does the resolution include the receipt of the presentation? No?
We'll add that.
We'll add them. Okay, thank you. Thanks very much, Carrie.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, so we will now find out, are there any questions in the question period, Madam Clerk?
No questions.
Thank you. We'll move on to Per Lundberg with his proposed provincial planning statement 2024 and Bill 185.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is an information piece on the latest from the province in regard to provincial planning. So I'll go over a little bit about Bill 185 and the latest draft of the provincial policy document to be called the Provincial Planning Statement. A recommendation on the information here is that council direct staff to submit comments to the Environmental Registry of Ontario ERO website and our local MPP regarding a response to the proposed provincial planning statement that the province is looking for currently. They're looking for input from the public and municipalities. So specific to Bill 185, which the province is not looking for comments on, it's with the legislature at this time. It's currently gone past the second reading, and it's with the Standing Committee on Finance and Economic Affairs. There have been some changes to the Planning Act in response to concerns over the past year from the public and other agencies at large. So some of the key or notable changes proposed to the legislation are the repeal of the 5-year phase-in of development charges. As noted in the report, our finance department will obviously be working with Watson and Associates to determine the impact of that and what will be required in terms of changes to our development charges bylaw. The Bill 185 is proposing to insert a new section to provide municipal authority under the Municipal Act to provide a bylaw for the allocation of water and sewer services to new development. So it just you could put in further direction on that, and it's an enabling clause under the Municipal Act. Amendments are made to the Planning Act to remove third-party appeals for official plan and zoning amendments. As you council may recall, this has already been done for consent applications and minor variances and site plan applications, I believe, as well. The refund provisions for site plan applications and zoning amendments are also proposed to be repealed, which we're noting will require, once this is approved and proclaimed and put into effect, that we'd be looking to modify our site plan control bylaw once again to recognize these changes. A new framework is proposed for minister zoning orders to create greater transparency. Listening to the minister's speech on this particular point, I believe he mentioned that there was already a website up and running that the public can access if they want to request a minister zoning order. I haven't personally been able to find out what that website is, but it may be up and running already. A new section 41.7.1 will permit authorized persons to provide for a lapsing date for site plan approvals. This would be similar to a lapsing date for subdivision agreements, just so that you don't have site plan agreements that don't get developed and they just sit around for year after year after year, right? The bill also proposes to remove municipal authority or require mandatory pre-consultation for official plan amendment, zoning amendment, site plan approval, and draft plans of subdivision, as is currently the case. Instead, this would be an optional step, as well as the proponent would be able to make a motion to the Ontario Land Tribunal after any time that a fee is paid or pre-consultation is started as to whether or not municipal requirements are appropriate or not. Further ministerial regulation is also proposed to be inserted for additional residential units. So they're currently called second units. We have policies for, right? This will be the up to 3 units. But there'll also be potentially zoning exemptions proposed through that new regulation when it comes out. Similarly, additional regulation making authority is proposed for community services facilities, including exemptions from Planning Act requirements for schools, hospitals, and long-term facilities. And you may also have heard about the post-secondary school exemptions from the Planning Act. So moving on to the provincial planning statement and some of the changes there. So the commenting period is now open until May the 12th. So this is why we're presenting it today in a bit of a rush. This is meant to be a very quick overview. We haven't had a lot of time to look over what all the changes are, but we're trying to hit some of the key ones, right? That maybe the township wants to provide some comments on. Let's see here. So some of the notable changes in the planning statement as currently drafted. The time period covered by an official plan is to be no less than 20 years, but no more than 30 years, where the current time frame is 25. So they're just changing the time frames a little bit. Criteria to be considered in order to allow for the expansion of settlement area boundaries is rephrased to shall be considered, where a previous draft version said should be considered, and that's a significant change under the current policies under the growth plan where settlement area boundaries are only permitted through municipal comprehensive review, right? So now it could be, after these changes get made, potentially applied through by a developer. Lot creation, multi-lot residential development as a permitted use on rural lands has been changed to simply state lot creation is a permitted use where site conditions are suitable. What the meaning and intent of that wording changes, I don't know, but I mean, it could be anything from they're trying to indicate that we're not supporting subdivision, as I understand the county planning department may be considering, or it might just have been a clear semantic change because lot creation and multi-lot creation really mean the same thing. So it's just a lot of additional wording. It's just such an editorial change, right? Could potentially. We'll have to wait and see if rural subdivisions are potentially permitted once these policies take effect, right? Building lot creation by consent in prime agricultural areas as proposed in an earlier version. The 3 lots in prime ag has been eliminated. It's been removed from the current proposal. Instead, they're looking to allow up to 2 additional residential units in prime agricultural, and the difference being that all 3 units could be detached structures in the proposed policy. Let's see what else is here. And then finally, policy on the implementation of an agricultural system is the provincial wording on it has been changed from encouraged to required. So the agricultural system that we currently have under the review by the province, as proposed in our draft adopted official plan, there likely won't be any opportunity to make any further refinements to that mapping or the prime agricultural areas in Selwyn. So finally, just some comments on this. We provided comments last year, May 23, on some changes that Selwyn specifically would like to see, including some clear policy around rural industrial uses. Those changes were not made to the current draft, so we're recommending the township reiterate that comment. Public Works Department here also had some concerns around how the direction under the provincial planning statement is directing municipalities to plan for water and sewer services and capacity reporting, and it's not consistent with MECP requirements. So just to make those 2 things consistent, no changes were made to the draft provincial planning statement. So again, we're just recommending we just resubmit that comment for consideration. And then finally, yeah, so the last one was when there seemed to be a little bit of discretion initially in last year in the last draft, that there would be some latitude to defining our own agricultural system and where our prime agricultural areas. We had a comment in there about providing funding to allow us to do that mapping exercise, and that we supported that. As I just mentioned, though, unfortunately, they've changed the wording, and it doesn't look like that will be an opportunity available to us at this point. So, and finally, a note, similar to last year, the county planning department is doing a more thorough and detailed analysis of all the changes. Their presentation to their council is, we understand, is going to be presented on May 1st. So, because the order of things, and we won't have time to have another council meeting before the comments are due, that we just recommend, or we would request that council provide us the authority to just look through what those recommendations are, make sure that they're consistent with what was endorsed by council last year. And if they are, then we would submit our endorsement for the county's comments along with those 3 specific comments that we had, right? And that's pretty much all I have for you at this point. So if you have questions, I'll try to answer them, but you may be just as knowledgeable as I am.
Okay, well, it's a moving target, as we've seen. So I do have a question with regards to the extra units on the agricultural land. That's without severance. Is that what they're saying? You can build 2 other houses on that?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, so in lieu of being able to sever, you can have additional residential units, you can have dwellings instead.
No, it doesn't make any sense to me either. I don't understand. Anyway, it was like a second, like, you know, what we have now with second.
Yeah, so there'd be third units.
Third.
allowed.
Yeah. Anyways, it doesn't make any sense to me either. So, are there any other questions? Councillor Cool's?
Sorry, I just have a general question. Are we able to have a special meeting before the next council meeting to actually go over what happens at county and have, it's more of like a learning session for us to know what comments you did here, and maybe have a say in what you do provide an ERO posting?
Janice, did you want to comment?
Yeah, question.
It's up to council. Yeah, the report, I think what Per is saying is, you know, he would review the county's report and provide any, you know, support for the county's comments based on his expertise, but it's up to you.
Deputy Mayor Blunt.
Mayor Stennis, I think everything that's being done is written in pencil today, so.
Yep.
You know, getting the feedback from the county and making sure it aligns with it, I think it's an exercise. It's all gonna go into the province. There's no guarantee any of it's gonna be considered anyways, so. It's gonna be what it is. But just one question, Per, and you may not have the answer at this point, is with regards to the criteria to be considered in order to expand settlement area boundaries. It's rephased to shall be, which means we have to consider it versus should be. And you mentioned that a developer could come and say on the edge of Woodland Acres and say, I want to develop across the road. It's not part of that settlement area. They would have to go through an OPA then to get that. Or do you even know how that would work at this point?
Yeah, so through you, your worship, so Woodland Acres is not a settlement area. What they would be applying for is to expand the city of Peterborough.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's use Lakeville as an example then. If the settlement area were to expand up to where Kingdon and those places are.
Yeah, that's correct. It'd be an official plan amendment process.
It's a public process
Yeah.
to do that. Now, is that, so the township could actually do that as well and open up the OP as well? Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? All right, we have a recommendation in front of us to receive the information and that we direct staff to submit comments as noted through the ERO website and our local MPP as the Township of Selwyn's formal response on the proposed provincial planning statement 2024 version 2.0. I'm not sure what number we're at now. Anyway,
Oh,
can I have
Mayor,
someone move that,
sorry,
Councillor?
Mayor Sennis?
Pardon? Yeah, Councillor
Sorry,
Henry
Sherry.
moving it. Oh,
Sorry,
Andrew.
we'll just add that extra piece that staff be given the authority to review the county's comments and provide any response through the ERO, and that a copy of that come back to council.
Yeah, it's fair. You okay with that, Councillor Henry? Okay. And have a seconder. Councillor Koulis, all in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. All right, our consent items we have before us, and along with those consent items, there are a few recommendations for resolution or requests for endorsement. So is there anything that anyone wants pulled? Seeing none, okay, I need someone to move the consent items. Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Boyko, all in favor, that is carried, thank you. Is there any other new and unfinished business? I do have one item, and that is that the Library is looking to have, for the first time ever, a fundraiser in the way of a golf tournament that is going to be held on August the 8th at 4 p.m. at the Quarry. So the tickets are going to be available soon. And I encourage everyone to help support the library by becoming a foursome. And it's funny because one of the people that's on the golf committee said she'll need to borrow a stick. Yeah, a stick. Yeah, so shows how good they are at golf. Anyway, and there's nothing else, so we have bylaws, Madam Clerk.
Yep, we've got bylaw 20. It's an authorizing bylaw for cash in lieu of parking at 18 Bridge Street in Lakefield. And then bylaw 21 to establish the tax rates for the year 2024.
Someone to move those, please. Councillor Boyko, Deputy Mayor Black, all in favor, it's carried. Confirming bylaw. Councillor Coulis. Councillor Henry seconding, all in favor, carried. And a notice to adjourn. Councillor Henry, Councillor Coulis, all in favor, it's carried. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a day.